to my far left. I'd like to welcome her officially to the Chester Water Authority Board, and I'm sure she's going to do a phenomenal job for us. I think everything else has been taken care of.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the City of Chester appointed Ms. Loyola Williams to fill the vacancy by Dr. Patricia Lewis West, who resigned. We received a resolution of appointing her. We received her statement of financial interest and her certification of residency. Ms. Grace Jackson, a notary public for Chester Water Authority, will now give her the oath of office.
Good afternoon. Your name?
Leola J. Williams.
Repeat after me, please. I do solemnly affirm that I will support, obey, and defend
I do solemnly affirm that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office as a board member
and I will discharge the duties of my office as a board member
of the Chester Water Authority with fidelity.
of the Chester Water Authority with fidelity.
I did ask Mrs. Williams if she wanted to make any comments, and she said that she would just listen for now, so just want everybody to be aware. Our next agenda item is nominations and election of a vice chair, as Dr. West has resigned her position. Do we have any nominations?
Yes, I nominate Mr. John Shelton Sr.
I'll second.
Mr. Brandon,
Yes.
Mr. Herford,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahala,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes,
Mr. Washburger,
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Congratulations.
And I must apologize, I have my hat. I kept on because my head got cold as something. And I'm young.
I understand. Congratulations. Do we have any guests today? I see a few people joining us. So anybody want to, if you can stand up and just tell us who you are? Appreciate it.
My name is Howard Crawford. I live here in India City of Chester.
Thank you.
Greg Carey.
Susan Dennis, resident. Dolores Shelton, resident.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. Do we have any public comments on today's agenda items? Okay, hearing none, moving on. Can I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of December 11th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Brandon,
Yes.
Mr. Herford,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahala,
Yes.
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes,
Mr. Washburger,
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Abstaining because I was not here.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Solicitor, any action items?
Mr. Chairman, there are no action items from today's executive session, but I will report that the board met at 1 o'clock. It commenced its meeting at 1 o'clock. It had continued that session through the start of today's meeting. During that period of time, there was a substantial information session where the board discussed authority operations, which is allowable under the case that I cite every single month in minutes. And I gave a portion of that talk about bankruptcy litigation and mediation in executive session, which would constitute the executive session part of today's meeting. So it was both an informational session and an executive session from 1 to about 3, I guess 3 to 10. And I have no action items and nothing further to report.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11, the Chief Financial Officer's report. We have an item there, 11A, request to approve expenses by function report. It's in your packets. We have a motion for that, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Brandon.
Yes.
Mr. Herford.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahala.
Yes.
Mr. Shelton.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Washburger.
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item 12, the Director of Engineering report. There are several items there, items A through H. Is that correct? If we can take items A through D in motion, I appreciate that.
Did you say D is in dog?
D is in David, yes, for dog.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Mr. Brandon.
Yes.
Mr. Herford.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahala.
Yes.
Mr. Shelton.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Washburger.
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion for items E, which are on-call agreements. E and F, if I can have a motion for that, I appreciate it.
So moved.
Second.
Who had who first? Sorry.
Don and-
Don, sorry. There you go. Thank you. Mr. Brandon.
Yes.
Mr. Herford.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahala.
Yes.
Mr. Shelton.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Washburger.
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next items under 12 are items G and H. I'd like to point out that Mr. Walshberger pointed out a error. It says approximately. In item G, approximately $252,901. And in item H, it just states a number, $1,107,386. In both those items, that's a not to exceed number. So I'd like that to be noted in the minutes. And I'd like to also have a motion for items G and H.
So moved as amended.
Second.
Mr. Brandon.
Yes.
Mr. Herford.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahala.
Yes.
Mr. Shelton.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Washburger.
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to item 13 from our Director of Human Resources. It's item A and B to approve pensions for two very happy people, Alan Webb and Lois Maskey, effective February 1st, 2024. Have a motion for those items, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Brandon.
Yes.
Mr. Herford.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahala. Mr. Shelton.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Washburger.
Yes.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Gagson, do we have to vote on the next item? Or is that
No, it's just a notice. You received
Okay.
your financial interest statements, just returned to me by May 1st. Any questions, please let me know.
Okay, that's just a standard
Yeah.
every year. Okay. So moving on to item 15, do we have any new business? Okay, any old business? Okay, this time we'll entertain any public comments that anybody in our audience might have. Nobody? Okay. Hearing none, I'd like to then entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.